Good afternoon, awesome people. Well, my house is no longer my house anymore. Let me show you. It is an entire mess. Let me show you for a second. So, this thing is now a huge construction zone with everything strewn everywhere. So, friends, that is the price you pay for not knowing what you're doing, but most importantly, for wanting to go cheap. When I was building this house a few years ago, I knew very little about construction. I still know little, but my desire for cheap fundis are becoming very expensive. So I'm fixing them bit by bit, and so yes, in 10 days I'm going to show you what it looks like once they clean it all up. Now, I have just learned that there's a bill in the US Congress that is being proposed, and it seeks to end dual citizenship for American citizens. Now, for those of us who live in the US and are American citizens, I would say the majority of us hold dual citizenship. And so that allows us to do a whole lot. And many people are looking forward to that. Now, not every country has dual citizenship. I have friends who are Japanese, and I know for sure Japan is one of the many countries that does not allow dual citizenship. And this has massive implications for those of us who are working to return to the village. So let's talk about this issue of some really stupid guy working to end dual citizenship for Americans. But before we unpack this important topic, friends, you gotta subscribe, man. We gotta keep us going. We need to hit 100K subscribers before the year ends. So if you're one of the folks who enjoy our content but you've not subscribed, all you gotta do is just check. There's over 2 million people who watch us that have not subscribed. So just check and support us. That's all you can do. And if you need help with the construction, you need help with moving back to the motherland, we help people build things like the one you see behind me. We help people buy property. If you're buying cars, buying land, finding builders, architects. I have a decent network of folks who have served us for years. And I'm happy to link you up with those folks. So my number is right here. Just hit me up and I'll be happy to help where I can. So anyway, friends, it's an afternoon in December, somewhere in Kisumu, Karateng, in Western Kenya. Lovely, lovely evening. It actually rained quite a bit today. And since I've been back, it has not rained. And I've been told it's not rained in about a month, which is very unusual for this time of the year. Because typically it starts getting dry towards late December, January, and a bit of February. And so we appreciate all the rain that comes with us, friends. But this is what we experience in the village, friends. So if you want to join us in this place, many of us just want a quiet life. So guys, I got rudely interrupted by some random thing anyway. So yeah, if you want to lead a quiet life in the village after spending years outside Africa or after Kenya, it doesn't matter if you were born and raised in Africa. Some people have never been to the motherland and want to join us. Come, you're welcome. So anyway, folks, there's this stupid guy called, I think he's called Bernie Moreno, who is a US Senator from Ohio. And this fool is proposing to end dual citizenship for all Americans. Now, I don't know how far this will go, but with the current political climate, you just never know. Because as of now, to the extent that I know, Americans can hold, I think, as many citizenship as they desire. There are people with 3, 4 passports for whatever reason. Because having multiple passports comes with significant advantages, but also comes with some burdens. And especially for people who are thinking of living outside the US, it really comes in handy. Once you're a citizen, you can be out here for however long you want, and when you want to go back to the US, just buy a plane ticket and you're done. That's the biggest advantage. that you can always come in and out as you please, as opposed to somebody who is a permanent resident or maybe a person who is on some kind of a visa. So essentially what has been tabled is that if at all this goes through, then technically they'll give people a period to choose whether you want to maintain your U.S. Citizenship or something else. And by the text of the proposed law, if you don't choose within that time, then they'll assume that you've decided not to become a U.S. citizen. Now, I don't know how you enforce that, because for one, the U.S. does not, to my knowledge, the U.S. does not maintain a register of who holds what citizenship. I'm sure they can find that out if they need to, but for the most part, they really could care less what you do out there. And what that means is that even when you hold another passport, as a U.S. citizen, when you live in the U.S., you can't simply run to the whatever consulate and say, oh, no, I'm a Kenyan citizen, I'm only subject to Kenyan laws and all that stuff. No, as a U.S. citizen, if you're in the U.S., it is U.S. law through and through. So I don't know how they enforce this, but it has massive implications. Because for people who are not fully transitioned, it simply means that if you give up your U.S. citizenship, then you're going to have to go to the embassy and apply for a U.S. visa to be admitted. And that process is not fun. Ask anybody who has ever gone to the U.S. embassy. Some people have good experiences, many others don't. Because for the most part, that system is not designed to help people like you and I. The system is built to make them money for the most part. So people apply, they take their money, and then they say no. Over and over again, I know people who have gone to the embassy like 10 times or even more. They're more than happy to take your money, knowing very well they're not going to give you the visa. So there's a huge economic bit to it, but then there's also strategic interests attached to those visas as well. And so losing U.S. citizenship comes with massive implications. I remember when I went to the embassy, I've only gone to the U.S. embassy one time when I went to get my student visa decades ago. And I knew from that experience, I never wanted to have anything that brings me to the U.S. embassy unless I'm going back as a citizen. I went one time, I've never been back, and I hope nothing takes me there. Because the way those people treat Africans is insane. And to make it even worse, the Africans employed in the U.S. embassy probably will treat you worse than the other folks who are issuing visas. Sometimes they act as if you would think they are U.S. citizens who are holding your life. So those people are terrible humans for the most part. You talk to anybody who's gone to the U.S. embassy as a non-citizen. If they're black folks, they have a terrible experience. Now, if you go to the U.S. embassy as a citizen, it's a whole different experience. So I can't imagine going back to the U.S. embassy as a non-citizen looking for a visa. So this is a problem for people who still want to maintain lives on both ends. However, for people who are set, Africa can still work. I know people who have renounced citizenship. You can renounce and just live your life. But that, even me, I'm not there yet. Because again, it takes a lot. Many of us are still very much tied to life in the US, especially when our jobs depend on holding US citizenship. Now, like for me, I can work from outside the US. But to hold my kind of a job, I have to be authorized to work in the US. So that would mean some kind of a visa, maybe a green card or citizenship. So if I give up my US citizenship, then immediately I'm no longer eligible to do my job. So then I don't know how that gets resolved. Maybe I apply for a visa. I don't know how that gets resolved. So what is actually most annoying about this guy who has proposed this law is that, for one, this fool was actually born in Colombia. He became a US citizen at 18. He was born to immigrant parents. And so there's this phenomenon that I have struggled to understand, where people who experience these kinds of circumstances, when they get the privilege, they take the opportunity to terrorize the very same people who have walked in their shoes. And by that I mean, this is an immigrant who's born outside the US, will never become a US president. And is turning around, once he becomes a US citizen, now he's trying to terrorize the rest. I've really never understood this phenomenon. It's like more when you meet like a gay person who is choosing to terrorize other gay people. Or you find a woman who is choosing to terrorize other women. And the more common examples are when you meet Africans who don't like fellow Africans in diaspora. And of course, this is a very small group. Most of us, when we meet, like I'm from Kenya, when I meet somebody from Senegal or Botswana or where, it is game on. It is always game on. Once in a while, you find the oddballs. And yes, they're there. There are Africans that when they meet you in the US and they find out you're African, oh, they'll stay away from you for whatever reason. I've never really understood that phenomenon, but it does happen. Maybe in their minds they think that by joining the oppressors, then they probably will become one of them. Here's a newsflash, my friend. You will never be part of them. And that's one of the lessons that I had to learn from my African American friends. Because as a Kenyan, as an African, when I moved to the US, there's so much I didn't know about the system. And given my colonial experience and background, I didn't understand what racism looks like from the perspective of black people. And I can tell you for a fact, racists in some of these Western countries don't give a hoot what kind of blackness you're bringing in. Whether you're bringing the Kenyan flavor of blackness, the Alabama flavor, the Brazilian flavor, they don't give a hoot. Because to them, the first thing they see is your skin color. So some of us, unfortunately, as minorities, come in and we think that by joining them in what they do, at some point we can earn a place in their society. It never works. It never works. And so when you get fools like this ones who are now being used to terrorize members of their own community, they really serve the goals of people who don't like us. But yes, this is incredibly annoying. A child of an immigrant, who is an immigrant himself, born outside the US, working to really terror. And for sure, what he's trying to change does not help the US in any way. If they change that, there is nothing that it contributes to the US. But again, in his mind, maybe he thinks this will make him look a certain way amongst the conservative right-wing guys. Maybe this will earn him a place in one of those places. And actually, he's a brown guy. He will never be white. Not by any stretch of imagination. In fact, right now, a lot of the minority groups who ended up voting for Mr. Orange and all that are finding it rough. Because in their minds, they thought if they join those folks, then they'll be treated differently. I'm telling you, your black tail is going to remain black. Your brown tail is going to remain brown, and it is wonderful. So for us, we just choose to embrace it and work with everybody else to make the US and the other Western world as good as can be. So, folks, I hope nothing comes out of this bill. But in case something changes, then maybe for those of us who are thinking of moving back home, just keep that in mind. That what would that mean for you if you're forced to pick between your US citizenship and whatever citizenship you hold or plan to hold? All right, folks, that's all I have for you this rainy afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.